my gift, hopefully, to people that are listening this week is to bring someone like my friend Dr. Bruce Baird to the table. This is a week that we celebrate independence, freedom, freedoms that were built by this country. The sacrifices have been made by many, including my friend Bruce Baird. Now more than ever, the world is both this freedom that we talk about today is both timely and personal. We live in a world today that really celebrates convenience and comfort, but often at the cost of control. That's our autonomy and our freedom, our finances, our future. Freedom isn't something that's handed to us. It's something that we have to build, protect, and reclaim, sometimes against all odds. This week, I invited a number of my professional friends, entrepreneurs, really thought leaders and innovators, risk takers, outliers that I've known and really established a camaraderie with over the years. I couldn't do what I do and be where I am today without the people that I know, and I want to share some of that wisdom with you this week. So, first up to bat, my friend Dr. Bruce Baird. And again, thank you so much for being here, Bruce. It's a
Oh,
pleasure to have you.
it's always a pleasure getting to visit with you, David. I'm excited to share anything that I can that might help somebody in the future.
So, are you saying that anything's on the table?
What's that?
I say anything's on the table.
Pretty much. I mean, you can't ask me anything that I haven't already talked about. Pretty much.
Probably not. Probably not. So let's just start with some basics. What does freedom mean to you, just beyond financial success?
Freedom to me really means being able to choose when I get up in the morning what it is I want to do today. Um, and that's difficult when you're in the day to day, dentistry. You have patients scheduled, but that freedom allows you to be able to make choices on when you want to go places, where do you want to go. Um, my patients obviously super important to me, so I want to make sure I'm always available. But it's something that, for me, freedom is to be able to spend time with my family, spend time with friends, playing in a golf tournament like I did this last weekend, just doing things that I think are moving myself forward. As I've gotten to retirement age, new questions come up. It's not necessarily the financial questions. It's okay, what what am I going to do to leave that legacy for my grandkids? And it's not financial. It's what things am I going to do to go play with my grandson on the par 3 golf course. I mean, so it does change. When I was young, it was a totally different animal. But yeah,
Well, I know that you think very generationally, but we don't start that way in life.
no.
Naturally, we start out by going to school and piling on debt and coming out with training and education and a real exuberance about getting out there and getting it going, right? With our families and all that we do and our businesses. And the focus really at that point for most of us is not on the long game. It's about paying the bills and having a little extra left over to do something nice with or invest back in ourselves. So I'm curious, I'm sure it wasn't like a light switch that went off for you because it wasn't for me, but kind of what set the stage for the transition? When did you start to feel? Maybe the way I put it is because I kind of felt this. Like I ask people a lot of times, well, how much is enough? And well, the question back is, well, how much is enough for what? Great question. Is it to retire, to be done, not to do anything else, or is it enough to do the next things, to think beyond ourselves, our immediate family, but to the greater good and more service to our empowering our staff, which you do with PDA, with our patients. Where did you start to see that change happen for you? It probably was a range of time, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it went over. I mean, I've told the story about my first 10 to 12 years in practice, and I was not a very good boss. I was not a very good leader. I literally I was under that pressure of debt. I was under that pressure of having kids, and I was under that pressure of feeling like I had to provide. And I asked for that pressure. I had kids. I got married, but it's one of those things. As a dad, all of a sudden you start thinking differently. And being a boss, I mean, I've told people before, my dad was a Marine aviator, and there was no gray areas. It was black and white. And so I brought that experience with me to the practice. And truthfully, it wasn't a really good way of doing things. And I say God has a sense of humor because he gave me 4 daughters, and I had to learn to speak a whole different language, which that's when I started noticing the transition, when I started actually caring more about the people I worked with, caring about others, as opposed to internalizing all the stress that I had. And I found that even with my own kids, uh, and I think they've picked that up. And there's the more you can focus on others and their their role and their journey, then all of a sudden it takes some of the pressure off of me. And that's when I started noticing a difference. I started noticing my practice starting to flow. I started noticing patients that were saying yes to more treatment because they can see it. They can tell the differences, and they can see when there's stress involved in the practice. And so I my last 20 some odd years in practice, I I really loved going to the office. I was having fun. Through productivity, I learned to be able to take more time off, but produce more when I was there. So that focus became clearer and clearer as I went through my journey in the profession. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, you kind of get into a flow state at a certain point. And I think you're 100% right and we've all been through this. Myself, absolutely, where the focus was on me, and I should be good enough to do all this myself. And doggone it, think people aren't doing it the way I want to do it. Then bring the hammer down. And we have some wake up call somewhere, or maybe it's a it's a mentor, maybe somebody we actually listen to somebody else,
Sure.
and you have to have some faith about that because it's not natural. But I know you that in the realm of what you learn to do, and that is to focus on other people, to empower other people, to think more about other people versus am I going to produce enough today? And that's important. We have to look at numbers, but how you get there is a different methodology than what we thought when we were growing up. So I'm going to talk about collaboration, empowerment, which is a huge part of everything that you do. You've built multiple businesses. Well, you would frankly tell me today, David, you didn't do it by yourself.
Yeah, no,
Right. I mean, no. So,
that's
but,
right.
but maybe you're the leader. You're the visionary, and it takes someone to do that. But we visionaries have to have other people that we can um, embolden to believe in what we want to do, and it has to come from inside. Can't be about the money. It has to be what we're trying to accomplish for other people, and that's what you've done really, really well. And you continue to do that. You said something about retirement, but I don't see any retirement about you at all. So
Yeah.
speak a little bit to collaboration and what you've learned and what you teach so well
Yeah.
today in terms of getting to what we want by helping other people get what they want.
Boy, I mean, that's a beautiful statement. Again, I'm not sure exactly when I figured that out, but it was probably 15 years into practice. But um, I just began focusing on others and began looking at how can I help them get where they wanted to be. And as we did that, our relationships grew. Our agreed upon course of action between two parties grew. When I asked my employees, or when I was starting a new business, I've always had the visionary thought process, thinking down the road 10 years or 15 years. But I couldn't. I'm not the guy who's going to be the gosh, what would be a good term? I'm probably not going to be the one that actually makes it happen. I'm going to come up with all of the thought processes behind it, and then you bring in people like the late Dave Porritt, one of my close friends who just passed recently. But David was a key part of compassionate finance, and Victoria Peterson, my partner with PDA. I associate with really high level people, and they have different skill sets than I do. And I think it's important. You get three visionaries in a room and you're coming up with all kinds of ideas. And I remember doing that multiple times in my early years. And even now, you get with people who are all visionary and nothing ever really happens.
That's right.
But you've got great ideas. And so I think that that's the one thing I can point to more than anything is surrounding yourself with people who compliment you, who 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 look at you and they see your weaknesses and they kind of fill in those pieces. Well, I can do this. Oh, well, man, if you could do that, I can do this. And so it was. I've been really blessed to I don't know, surround myself with folks. Every January, I go through this process of looking around me, who am I surrounding myself with? Are they energy suckers, or are they people who I'd become in relationship with? And so sometimes you have to say goodbye to people who are just dragging you down, which is always hard. Um, but you surround yourself with folks who have I think the same ultimate goal of helping other people. And when you find those folks, money, I've always said, money takes care of itself. If we take care of our patients, if we take care of our employees, if we take care of in investing, if we take care of those who are around us, then I have found it to be very beneficial in the long haul. If that makes any sense.
Well, I think it definitely does. It's the difference between a scarcity mindset where there's only
Yeah,
so much there, so I better get mine, and the heck with anybody else. If they get some breadcrumbs, good for them, but I'm going to make sure I get mine. Versus, the pies can always be enlarged by what you just said, by
sure.
empowering other people, and whatever the pie is, your mission, your practice, uh, businesses expands by having the right people. So there's
Right.
room for everybody. And the other thing I'll say, I also want to acknowledge David Porritt, who I became friends with after you introduced us kindly several years ago. And no details necessary here, but one of the conversations Dave and I had was because you guys had many years of relationship in different business evolutions. And he said at one point there was a certain business that maybe the exit or what he thought, there was something there where his expectations weren't exactly in line with what was happening.
Yep.
And and he conversed with you about that, and he said Bruce just took care of whatever I thought I see. That's the basis of a long-term visionary who, again, looks at the benefit of having great people, and you've had these long-term relationships, and that speaks well of a leader. Even if you're not in business with that person anymore, to be able to go back and say that person say, "That's a great person. I would do business again if the opportunity came up."
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
quality of a leader, and how many of us can do that? How many of us have burned bridges just because we felt like, well, we had to get ours?
Yeah. I know you've been so active in real estate and with your group and with not just real estate, but long-term revenue, generation. And I was never, I've always built businesses, and so I've owned commercial real estate and I've done that. But I actually called a buddy. I didn't know him at the time, but he was a huge investor and a huge money guy. He funded almost every home built in Granbury,
Mm.
and he was wealthy beyond imagine. But he was always helping people. And I called him one day, and he had done some financing for me on some of my commercial real estate. And I called him up, and because he and I never really sat down and talked. But I said, "Hey, I just want to come by. I just want to come by and visit." So anyway, I took him a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue because I knew that's what he drank, and I went over, and we used to sit on his back porch, and we'd just talk, and he would share his thought processes behind his investing strategies and everything else. But I knew he was somebody that knew a whole lot more than me, and I think that's a power that you have. I've seen too many dentists, associates, whatever, come in thinking, I know this stuff. I don't need your help. I know what I'm doing. But I prefer people who know that they don't know everything, and I like hanging out with folks who have been very successful in different arenas. Yourself being one, John being one, my buddy here, and the more I can surround myself with those people who are givers but have so much more information. Sometimes it's emotional intelligence, sometimes it's been financial intelligence, sometimes it's been dental intelligence. And I have always known that I was limited in how much I can learn. And it's one of those weird things now with all this chat GPT and everything else. Cause I mean, we've all Google searched, but now I'm like, okay, well, what about this? And I'll ask chat GPT a question. I'm going, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about any of this stuff. And I think that's going to be a challenge, but I think it's going to be a benefit in the future.
Yeah, no doubt that AI is a game changer, like we've seen well, let's go back to when electricity,
Sure.
way before our time, but it was a game changer. And then we had the internet, and now we have AI, and a lot of people get concerned about that this technology is going to take over, but it displaces. But there's also an equilibrium, and I would say to your point, just digging into AI for a second, is I find it fascinating. Also, I also know that it generates thought processes and ideas. I still need the people around me, the people I trust, to take even those new innovations and really work them over with real people. I think there's never going to be
100%.
any technology that overtakes our human need for social context.
I agree.
I just think that's a given. So take all the technology, plug it in where it applies, but realize that each person brings something to the table that technology
100%.
can't take away, and so don't be afraid of it, right?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid
No
of it.
question. No
Um,
question.
well, you were talking about what you call the what you don't know conversation.
Right.
Well said, because we all have those areas that we don't know, even if we've climbed a ladder to a certain area of quote success, but we didn't get there by ourselves, and there's still so much we don't know. Um, so you talked a lot in that conversation about knowing your end game. How
Hmm.
does having that clarity create freedom or freedom potential for highly trained entrepreneurs that we work with? That end game. How do you help people achieve that? And are there different end games for different parts of one's life, or is there some final end game that you help people focus on? How's that go?
Yeah. My end game, I, I built a large practice, dental practice. I had been married for 18 years, went through a divorce. I was working 75 hours a week, probably or more, and not on just dental work, but on writing and on just stuff I thought I had to do. And I honestly believe um, my philosophy of productivity changed to where if I could be at the dental office and produce at a high level, taking great care of the patients, it would free up the thing that we don't have any more of, which was time. And I mean, I remember working 8 to 8, 5 days a week, and working on Saturdays. And I didn't get to spend much time with my kids. I didn't spend much time, and it cost that marriage. And now it's my philosophy is almost 180 degrees different. I would rather go to the office 2 days a week, like I did the last 14 years in practice, and produce twice what I used to produce, and have time to do all the other things like visiting with you, coming to see you for lunch sometime, or and I can say that about all of my friends. I was able to spend more time with buddies. I was able to spend more time, more freedom time with my kids. Now I got 13 grandkids, so now it's even more fun. So, and going this week and playing the par three with my grandson. That's the kind of stuff to me that is an end game for me. It can be enjoyable. I want to leave a legacy that Doc was a good dude, man. He was always here for us. And my girls have turned out phenomenal, which I'm so pleased. But I look back and I said, man, I wish I would have spent more time. We always say that. They say on your deathbed, you go, well, I wish I would have done this. But I'll be honest, my last 25 years, I really don't look back anymore. I'm now really looking for, what's my impact going to be for the future. That's my end game. My end game, I guess we're going to die, but the only way we go forward is with our kids and grandkids and all of those things, and that has been my true joy over the last probably 15 years, and it continues to be that, and traveling and having the finances and the ability to be able to do all of that. I mean, I just that to me, family and friends and patients all made a definite impact on my career and my life. So for sure,
We traveled a relatively similar path,
yeah,
Bruce. Like you, I early on, because I thought the work ethic, the responsibility to my family was to work a lot of hours. And of course, when you're young and you're coming out of school, you don't have a lot of efficiency yet anyway. So maybe that's part of the process.
Right.
But to your point, going from that 5 to 6 days a week, and you know, I lost my marriage also at about the same point that you did,
Right.
for some similar reasons, no question about it.
Sure.
The nature that I'm doing all of this for the family, uh, but gee, what's the family really want? Would they like to see a little bit more of you, Dad?
That's right.
You husband, and
That's right.
yeah, but I'm doing this for the family.
Yep.
I'm bringing home the bake. Thinking that a bigger house or more Disneyland trips or whatever was going to, and we realized down the road that that's not what we're going. But we put that on us. It's a human nature. It's
It is.
part of our work ethic. And so all of you that are listening to this today, listening to the wisdom of Bruce, it's got to be a mindset shift, Bruce. And I think we can't just read about it in a book. We can't just dream about going from 5 days to 2 days and producing twice as much, because it doesn't seem believable, especially when you come from where you are. I tell people you can't read the outside of the label from inside the jar. So I need someone else to read my label, and I need someone else to show me who is like no better a person or technical person than I met, but actually has done it. And that's something you've always brought to the table. It's like it is possible, and you don't have to be some magical Houdini magician to do this. It's feasible, but until you can see it and believe it, have faith, nothing changes.
Oh yeah, no question, no question. And you're a living example. I'm a living example of that. I mean, I'm always surrounding myself and doing Productive Dentist Academy for the last 21 years. I've learned as much or more than the students, because they come in, ask me questions. I go, gosh, I don't know. I've never used that. Well, tell me more. And so, and I always thought the lowest producing docs would come to our programs, the ones who were just ready to file bankruptcy. And it was just the opposite. These docs were high-end doctors. They had been to courses. I'm still going to courses, and I put the handpiece down 6 years ago. And I'm still going to courses. And Cynthia sometimes will go, why are you going again? I said, well, or I'm watching videos, of some of the new stuff that's going on. And I'm like, she goes, why are you doing that? I said, because I'm not dead. I mean, I'm a dentist at heart. I love dentistry. And if people ask me questions, they send me text messages all the time. And I said, I don't know, but I want to find out about it. And I'll share with you and you share with me as we go. So I just think the more people you can bring into your circle that are value driven, relationship driven people, all of a sudden things start to happen at breakneck pace. And I know people have told you this, but how do you do all the things that you do? And I go, well, I don't know. It just seems pretty easy, because I took something from this person, so certain treatment planning things from John Coyce, other things from Paul Homily. They're my friends, but the ones who I think suffer are the ones who aren't willing to reach out or maybe aren't good at that relationship part of it. But I know I'm always reaching out, and I want to continue to do that. I'm reaching out to people at church. I go, man, that guy has just been a pillar for so long. I just want to get to know him, or I want to get to know this person. I think those are the things that, as I get further, down the road, you start again thinking about legacy, thinking about how can I help as many people as I can, and just have fun doing it. And the finances always have taken care of itself with creating businesses, doing certain real estate things, but they all happen naturally. I didn't force a lot of that. The dentistry, I felt like I got forced into it for the first 15 years because I was like, oh my gosh, I am way over my head. And then you start figuring it out. And so I always tell young docs, and I love young docs, and I love working with them, because I'm like, take a breath, do the work, do the work, go do your learning. What are the things there are some docs that love doing everything. And I'm kind of one of those, but I chose to say, these are the things I love doing. And then I want to focus on those. They happen to be highly productive procedures and stuff like that. But that really wasn't the reason I loved doing them. I love doing surgery. I love doing, Lanapser. I love doing all that stuff. And so it allowed me to increase my productivity and decrease my time. And that really was my kind of my secret sauce. And that's what we teach at PDA. And we're now working with we have a new product called Clinical Calibration Institute, which we're working with everybody on your team, with masterminds, and from the front administrators to your chair side, to your associate, to you. What are the things that, how can we all be on the same page? Because that's the big problem. Doc has it here. Nobody else in the office knows what's going on. And I used to come back from seminars, like I'm sure you did. All right, this is the way we're going to do it. And they're like, oh, man, just wait a week and he'll be over.
Wait a week and that'll pass. That too will pass, right?
That's right.
So true. So true. Well, lots of insights there. I want to go back and pull one thing out that you said, which I found the same, is that many times the doc, the business owner who is barely making it and feeling burnout, and there seems like there's a reticence for them to reach out. And I'm trying to figure out, is it embarrassment? Do you think there's an embarrassment factor there, which I could understand? Why is everybody else, not knowing that not everybody else is doing great? There's a lot of people, but thinking you're the only one because, well, of course, you can go to social media and see how everybody's killing it, right? Of course, social media is a good place for comparison, not or you go to a CE course and everybody's doing this and and you're thinking in your mind, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
How can we, I call it giving permission. How can we give permission to those that are reticent to step up and say, hey, I've got issues in my life, and big part of it maybe just financial and lack of leadership and technology and skills and the myriad of things. How can we right now tell those people, don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. You can change your life if you'll step up and just say, hey, I've got some missing cogs in the
yeah. I mean, it's not a one and done deal. I mean, it's not, I've made major mistakes, major things that I wish I'd have done that. But I got over that, and I got to the point to where I would have never done this if I hadn't done that. I would have never done this if I hadn't done that. I was involved with Expert back in the day. We had education centers, and that company didn't go, and I spent a lot of money and a lot of time. And some of the guys that were involved got very bitter. I learned so much going through that process that it probably quadrupled my revenue potential for the rest of my life. And that's what, if I can teach a doc to go from $400 an hour easily to $800 an hour, that's 30 years old, and he works for 30 years, we're talking millions of dollars of difference, and you can do that in half the time if you chose to. And one thing interesting is the new generation. When we were growing up, the baby boomers, I mean, we worked just like our parents, and we worked all the time and had that deal. But I notice now there's a more balance that I see. I don't know if you've seen that, but there's just seemed to be more balance. I want time and I want revenue. So it's really interesting.
It is, yeah. The cycles that we go through generationally, no question that generations that coming up behind us have seen and been exposed to different than what we had, and I'm not saying negative ways.
Not at all.
There's both, and so we have to kind of be in step with what they're seeing and still give appropriate guidance. But certainly they've looked at a lot of things that our generation did and say, I don't want any of that.
That's exactly right.
Which I go, good for you. That's clarity, right? So how can we help you get what you want without doing what we did in many cases? Bruce, you've said that you wish you knew what you know now. If the 60 plus whatever year old Dr. Baird could address you today, what would he say about safeguarding true freedom in both business and life?
Oh, that's a really, really, that's a question where you start asking yourself the older you get, what would I have told myself different? And the truth is, I would have told my younger self that it's going to be all right. That if you take great care of people, and I mean, honestly, your patients, your team, your friends, your spouse, your family, if you take great care of people, everything's going to work out great. Now you're going to hit some big bumps. You're going to hit some stuff, but I think that philosophy of abundance I think it goes deep, and it goes through. I look at my kids, and they are the most abundant. They didn't have anything, but they learned abundance, and so that's what I would tell my younger self. I mean, have that abundant mentality, even when you don't have a pot to pee in.
Right.
But the more you do things that help others, it's going to work out. And I've always said, people say, well, I don't want to email you, because I know you're so busy. I said, well, that's what I do. So I love it when you email me. I love it when you text me or call me. And so I'll talk to people. And I had a good friend of mine said, he called me. He's not a dentist. We went to high school together, played high school basketball. And he says, I've got a friend, and he's a little frustrated. He's in his early 60s. He doesn't know whether to retire or whatever. He says, do you think you talk to him? I said, man, I do it all day long. I love it. So please have him call me, because, and I'm doing it for not a reason that I think I'm going to have a financial gain. I'm doing it because the more we all help each other, and you've helped me over the years, and it's just, I think that's the philosophy. And I think when we get away from it's all about me to where it really isn't, when we finally realize that, when, whatever, we go through that divorce, we go through something catastrophic, and you realize I have no control. And then you got to look upstairs and say, I've got my faith, and I'm going to focus on those things that I know are going to be there no matter what. So that's been my kind of driving force through this.
That's beautifully said. Well, Bruce, I appreciate you being here today, and everybody who's with us for this segment. I really appreciate you joining us. Freedom isn't something that we celebrate just once a year. It's something that we live out on a daily basis, or we can risk losing it little by little. It can happen that easily. So my challenge to all of you is simple. Don't settle for a version of life that looks successful on the outside, but leaves you tapped out on the inside. Ask yourself, what does real freedom look like to me? That end game that Bruce was talking about. And more importantly, what am I willing to do to change, to invest in, to create it? What do you want to do? I'm going to leave people with that today. Bruce, any final thoughts?
Amen, brother. I agree with you 100%. I love, I love what you guys are doing. I love what we've been doing, and we're just going to we'll stay connected. That's it. Thanks for having me, though. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great week, everybody, and happy 4th of July coming up in just a few days.
Happy 4th. Thanks, Dave.
All right.